Hello there, friends. Welcome back. I hope you are having a fantastic summer week. I hope you'll join me today as we kind of recap our week here at the farm. We have been harvesting a lot of things out of our garden, so I thought I would just bring you along as we make a few yummy things for our kitchen. So some farm to table happenings this week. As you can see, earlier this week, my husband was in charge of helping with the grape harvest. The grapevine had grown across our fence and up the tree, which looked really neat. It was kind of magical to stand underneath this big grape tree, but also not very practical to get them all picked. So we had our first batch of tons of grapes, and they smelled so good. This one little bowl would smell up my entire kitchen. It smelled like grape juice. It smelled so good. We took them there. You saw a couple shots. I took them to my mother-in-law's one night and had her help me to remove the skins and the seeds with her food mill. It was a little bit of a trial and error, but I will tell you more about that when we get to canning our jam later today. This morning we had an awesome little rain shower. It didn't last very long, but any rain that we get here in August is very welcome. So we have been very happy to still have green grass. I think I've mentioned that in a few of our videos, whereas last year was such a drought here. So we are going to get our morning started very slowly here in this kitchen. It's rainy outside and the kids are requesting waffles. I feel like they have been so spoiled this summer with homemade breakfast every day. I keep joking that they're probably going to lose 5 pounds when they go back to school because we've just eaten nonstop. I make a really hearty breakfast. It seems like by mid-morning they already want a snack. I try to hold them off until a big lunch and then they snack in the afternoon, big dinner. We're big eaters around here apparently. I also sometimes think they request these breakfasts because they know they can help with all the measurements. So every time we make waffles or pancakes or biscuits, any of those baking items, my kids always want to help. And this morning they were kind of fighting over who gets to help. We usually end up dividing the recipe between the kids. Somebody gets to do the dry ingredients and someone gets to do the wet ingredients, and we kind of go from there. And then mom has to take over eventually. And you saw there, we always have to smell the vanilla. My kids love the smell of vanilla. And I always think that with scent being the strongest, memory maker, I always think of them someday looking back on these moments and finding sugar and butter and vanilla so comforting. Hopefully they will remember sweet rainy mornings like this one. Okay, now that my circus has been fed at least once today, we are going to try to get outside and get to the garden. But first, I am going to make a quick homemade bug repellent. I'm hoping that it'll keep the ticks away while I'm in the garden. This August, for some reason, we have had a horrible time with ticks. They've come back with a vengeance, and we just continue to have to spray our yard. But my husband cannot do so until this evening. So I am going to try to spray down in hopes that I can stay away from the ticks while I'm out there. Now, a sweet viewer had sent me this recipe in the comments section of a previous video, so I'll pop that on the screen. But essentially what I did was mix together water and witch hazel and then 30 drops of a rose geranium oil. And I'll be sure to put that recipe down in the description box for you too. I sprayed it on before I went out to the garden, and I will say I still ended up with a tick on the back of my knee, but I caught it right away. I sprayed just my boots down and my legs as I went into the garden. So I'm going to say it worked at least a little bit because we have had so many ticks and a horrible time with seed ticks specifically, which if you're unfamiliar, they are like the size of like little pepper specks and they're really hard to catch. You can barely feel them. But anyway, nonetheless, let me know in the comments below if you have any homemade remedies, any natural remedies especially. I love something I can spray on my kids or like you saw around animals. That's always important around here too. But unfortunately, we had to do a major spray of our yard again this year because it's been so bad. Now, I think this is my third major picking of the tomatoes this summer, and I will say they are getting a little bit smaller. That seems to happen as summer goes on, that you don't get as many of the really big tomatoes. tomatoes, but these will be perfect. Today I'm going to make a little bit of salsa. We still have a little bit left over from last summer, and my husband told me it's because he hasn't been eating it as much because he was afraid we were running out. And so it's something we never want to run out of around here. We love chips and salsa. That's always like a staple in our household year round, a nice little treat. And so I'm going to put some extra up so that he doesn't have to feel like we are living in scarcity when it comes to the salsa in our house. The garden was so peaceful this morning after that little bit of rain that moved through. It's just nice and cool, and it's not humid yet, so it's the perfect time to get out here and pick all of these lovely vegetables. The baby will be waking up from her nap very soon though, so I'm kind of on a time crunch here to get this done while the kids are busy. I did in fact have a little helper here though. This is Sneaky. He is one of our hunting hounds, and as you may remember, he was just a pup this spring. If you remember that from a previous video, he's new here and obviously so curious. And back to the kitchen where we must take many dance breaks and probably even more coffee breaks because these kids wear me out. Right, I am going to scrub up these tomatoes real quick, and I had so many of you ask after our last canning video what I do about tomato skins. Now, this is probably an unpopular opinion to some, so just bear with me. Everybody does it their own way. Definitely do your research when it comes to canning. I'm going to give you all the disclaimers first. I do not slip the skins from my tomatoes. I honestly never have. But I'm honestly still, I feel like even after I've been doing this for several years, I would consider myself an amateur when it comes to canning. So follow who you trust, but I just diligently wash my tomato skins as if I would if I was going to eat them for dinner that night. But I also go to a point of putting a little bit of vinegar with the water just to kill any bacteria that might be present. I always feel better about doing that. I had seen someone else on YouTube do that, and I thought it was a great step, something easy to add in. Honestly, I think I was nervous to share that with you guys, that I don't slip the skins, because I figured someone on the internet would tell me I'm doing it horribly wrong. But that's just how it is. But I would tell my friend next door that I've never slipped the skins off of my tomatoes. So that's what I'm telling you here today, and that's how we do it. So I got these really, really clean. I'm going to move them onto the kitchen. We're going to turn on a really good podcast. The kids are all playing happily, and we're just going to enjoy ourselves while we chop the day away. I think this is often the part of salsa making that I dread, all of the chopping, because there's all the tomatoes, and then there's peppers, and then there's jalapenos and onions, and the list goes on, and it feels endless in a way. But when my kids are happy and I can maybe listen to a podcast or some good music on the radio, it's so relaxing. And I realize how much I rush through things like this sometimes, because you just want that instant gratification of having the canned goods done and on the counter, and that trophy almost. But really, it is so enjoyable to just move slowly through the process and enjoy it. And I think maybe part of it for me too is that I feel guilty sometimes, like maybe I'm not being a good mom in this moment because I'm focused on this instead of my kids, or I'm not working like I should be. But in reality, that's not the case at all. I'm slowing down, my kids are happy, we're making nutritious food for our family, and we're all enjoying ourselves. And I think that's really important. We have a happy kitchen. Now, it was a happy kitchen, and it definitely was a happy living room. There was lots of blocks and fort building going on, but as you saw, also a little bit of movie time. Everyone was just kind of content doing their own thing. I did, however, take a lot of breaks in the middle of all of this chopping and salsa making that you're not going to see in this video today. But it's easy to throw these tomatoes in under the broiler, and I put them in until they're charred black on the top. my husband would say the longer you leave them in there, the better. I just get a little bit impatient because it seems like it takes a really long time to get them all black. Then I am going to throw in on top of that my jalapeno peppers, them to get a little bit of a char as well. And then I am going to use the handy roaster oven again today and throw it all in there to keep it hot, and then we'll blend it all together later. I'm just finding that that roaster is so handy. So thanks again to my mother-in-law for lending that to me. I may have to get one of those for myself because it seems like my stock pots aren't quite big enough. So I have 2 pretty big ones that I use, and I'll have to divide my recipe between 2 of them, and then it's just a mess. But having everything in the roaster oven is super handy to turn it on or keep it on low, however long it takes me throughout the day, because there's a lot of moving parts. I'm not only canning today, but I'm also taking care of 4 other humans. So it's kind of chaos at times. And like most days this summer, the clock is already feeling like it's coming, it's going against me here. It's moving quickly. So that's why I opted to grab those bell peppers I had recently chopped and put in the freezer from the garden out for this recipe instead of trying to wash and chop all of those too. We're trying to move slowly in the kitchen, but the clock sometimes still continues to tick away, and little time-saving hacks like that come in handy. Also ran outside quickly to grab the last of our onion harvest here. We didn't get a very good onion harvest this year, so we've had to mooch some on my in-laws for their onion harvest. And we're at the end of what we have here, but we're going to use up what we have in our recipe today. It's about the equivalent of 10 medium-sized onions. I had a few small ones and a few big ones. Sometimes canning recipes drive me crazy because they say, you need 5 medium onions. To me, that means it means nothing because you always have these random sizes that come out of your garden. That's just nothing else. Nothing comes out uniform from a garden. It's definitely usually not the same as buying fresh produce at the store. So all that to say, I should give you measurements today in terms of how many pounds of onions I used and how many pounds of tomatoes. I'm going to do my best to do that for you in the description box for this salsa, but I'm going to be completely honest with you here. I'm in a season of life where I'm not being very accurate with that part, because on something like salsa, I can taste it before I can it and see if I like it or if I need to adjust anything before I put it in the jars. So that's honestly what I did here. I just seasoned according to taste. So I'm going to do my best to share that with you, because in years past I have been a little bit more accurate with my measurements. So I'll leave that for you in the description box, but just know that we tasted around here today. My salsa is just going to sit over there until I'm ready to can it, and we are going to move back onto making our jam from our grapes. So I bought some of this pectin from the store. This is supposed to be the low sugar or no sugar added variety. I had to look online for a few different recipes. I honestly have never canned jam, so this is a new experience for me too. If you are an experienced jam maker, I would love to hear from you in the comments because I need all your tips and tricks. One thing that surprised me about jam is the amount of sugar that's called for in all of these recipes. And I love sugar, but this seems like an ungodly amount of sugar. I even used the low sugar variety, so there was 4 cups of sugar in this amount of jam. So, the verdict, honestly, at this very second of recording is still out on how this tastes, because I haven't opened any of my jars yet. They are still cooling and just setting. So I'll have to follow up with you to let you know if it was sweet enough, in fact. But I used a whole box of pectin based on the recipe I had found on that company's website and another couple recipes. I did a little research before I did this. So the pectin and the sugar goes in. I let it hard boil for a minute and then turned it off. It still was very runny going into the jars, as you can see here. I was a little bit nervous that it wouldn't set up and thicken even further, but it did, in fact. Before I went to bed on this evening of filming, I was still nervous because it didn't look super thick even after being in the water bath canner. But the next morning, I'm happy to report that I could turn a jar upside down and it was just super thick. Like it wouldn't even turn over, almost like a jelly, but this was a jam because of the way I did it. If you want to make a jelly, I think you have to strain this through a cheesecloth or a really fine mesh strainer just to get the juice out, and then it'll be more like a clear jelly instead of a jam. But I was going for something with a little bit more pulp. I'm hoping probably a little bit more fiber to go with all of that sugar. But I am very excited to try that out because I'm just picturing in the future we're going to have this rainy Sunday morning this fall with homemade biscuits and that homemade grape jam, and it's going to be it's going to be so good with a cup of coffee. I cannot wait. Now that I've romanticized it, I hope it turns out just like that. But if it doesn't, it won't go to waste. We'll figure out some other way to use it. And you know what? The best thing is we will learn, right? Because you can't learn how to can if you don't try. So that's where we're at. I've never made jam before, and we're going to go with it. Now, I am mixing together here my salsa. Sorry, I'm a little bit behind here on talking with you through this recipe, but I went ahead and hit that with the immersion blender to get all of those big chunks ground up. My family doesn't like a super chunky salsa. We just like it pretty smooth. I'm adding in the sugar, which would be optional, but my family really likes the sweetened salsa, so I just do a cup. I think it was 1.25 cups. This is a large amount of salsa though. And then I forgot to put in the cilantro, so you saw me there having to put the cilantro in last and then hit it with the immersion blender again. I'm putting a little bit in the fridge because I want my husband to try it before I can it. I think I made it a little bit too spicy, but I like it and I think it'll be good. We have some leftover, like I said, from last year too, so if it is really spicy, we'll have mild and medium on hand. It worked out great. Now, pulling out my jam and moving through the evening here, as you can see, the sun is starting to set and coming in through these windows. It is super hot in my kitchen here. But while the steam is rolling and I have this water bath canner going, this is the time to just knock it all out. So that's what we're doing here. That's why I kind of do everything in batches, and I did the jam right before the salsa. That way, when you have all that water hot, you're ready to go. So I am just going to can up this salsa. It ended up making 9 quarts. And again, I'll try to do my best and leave this information for you in the description box below. But here I am going to can 7 quarts because that's what fits in my canner at once. And since I only had 2 extra quarts and I know how fast we eat our salsa, I'm just going to put the rest of this in our refrigerator, and it'll be gone in just a couple weeks, I'm sure. So we will enjoy some fresh salsa over the next few days. I can't wait. Now, it feels like so much work, and you get to the end of this and it's exciting because you have something canned. And I still sometimes feel like, what did I get done today? Oh my gosh, that's all I got done. But when you really look back at it, you think, now I have a year's supply of grape jam in my pantry, and I have a year's supply of salsa, and I kept 4 humans alive all day, and I kept them fed and happy. And I think we just have to pat ourselves on the back sometimes. When the view looks like this from my kitchen sink, I'm very proud of where we're at. The bacon from our farm, the grapes from our garden, and the canner going full rolling boil. And here we are, just making our own food, growing our own food, and honestly making awesome things. It's not just mediocre, better than the store. This is things that are customized to us. We have found things that we love, and we're making those in our summer kitchen. Now tonight, I need something easy for dinner, and something we absolutely love around here in the summer is a BLT. Nothing beats a BLT in the summer with the bacon from our farm, our fresh tomatoes, some lettuce. Oh, it's so good. And I already have those pickles ready to go from earlier this summer. So many good things. It's a quick and easy summer meal that we can eat as we go in between chores, and we can eat it on the fine china. Before you go, drop me a comment down below. I would love to chat with you. I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope to see you back here again very soon.